Welcome back to another audio deep dive from the Art Business Podcast. Today we're going to be looking at something that a lot of Malaysian artists might not even know is available to them. And this is a program called the Self-Employment Social Security Scheme, SKSPS for short. Now, this program is part of the larger social security organization in Malaysia, which is better known as SOCSO. And our deep dive today draws directly from SOCSO's website and all those resources, really trying to clarify exactly how this can apply to you, especially if you're a visual artist working in Malaysia today.
It's really common, right? You have all this talent, all this passion, but the traditional employee benefits that you hear about, they don't really fit the reality of what it's like to be a working artist. And that's where the SKSPS comes in. Now, it was introduced a while back in 2017, and originally it was really focused on ride sharing and delivery drivers, professions where there were very clear on-the-job risks.
But it's grown quite a bit since then, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As of 2020, SKSPS covers 20 different sectors, with arts being explicitly included. So that means visual artists, performing artists. You now have access to these kinds of protections that really weren't there before.
So let's get specific. If I'm a visual artist in Malaysia, what are the real core concerns that SKSPS is looking to address for me?
Well, I think two big things jump out. First is straight-up work-related injuries. Think about sculptors who are dealing with heavy materials all the time, printmakers working with really potent chemicals, even the simple act of transporting your work to an exhibition or a gallery. These all have inherent risks. And then second, there's occupational diseases. Prolonged exposure to certain materials or repetitive motions that we do in our art. These can lead to health issues over time.
Yeah, these aren't just hypotheticals either, right? I
Yeah.
think we've all either heard stories or maybe even experienced some of these challenges ourselves.
Exactly. What SKSPS brings is this structured system of support, medical and financial, to help artists deal with these sorts of things when they happen.
So it's not just about preventing them. It's about what happens if they do.
Right. It's about having that safety net.
And the benefits, I have to say, are surprisingly comprehensive.
Yeah, they really are.
So let's break them down, starting with, I guess, the most immediate thing, medical benefits.
All right. So if you're registered with SKSPS and you get injured, and it's directly related to your work as an artist, you are entitled to free treatment at SOCSO-approved clinics or government hospitals. So this covers the initial injury, obviously, any follow-up care you need, and even rehabilitation to help you regain any lost function.
This is huge because medical costs can be a real barrier.
Oh, absolutely.
For artists, especially who may be working project to project,
Absolutely.
incomes are irregular.
That's a big one.
It can really prevent people from getting the help they need when they need it.
Right, and it goes beyond just that initial injury, too. Imagine you're a painter, and you develop carpal tunnel syndrome from all those years of brushstrokes. SKSPS actually recognizes that as an occupational disease, and they'll provide coverage for that as well.
That's so interesting, that recognition that what we do as artists can actually be hazardous in some ways.
Yeah, and it puts a framework around it.
So it's not just about accidents, it's about the wear and tear on the body that comes from certain creative fields.
Exactly. And, there's a financial safety net built in as well. So let's say you have a work-related injury or illness. That leaves you temporarily unable to work. That's when the temporary disablement benefit kicks in.
Okay, so how does that work in real life?
Well, you'd receive 80% of your average daily wage for each day that you are medically certified unfit to work. So it's not a full replacement of your income, but it provides really substantial support during your recovery. And that takes a lot of the pressure off. You can focus on healing without having to worry quite as much about money.
This brings up a really important point about documentation, though.
Yeah.
How does SKSPS figure out an artist's average income?
Right.
Especially because it can be so up and down.
It's a good question.
That's something artists struggle with even without injuries,
For sure. So when you enroll in SKSPS, you'll declare what you estimate your monthly income to be. And that, along with any records you have of your earnings, helps determine how much you would get if you need to use those benefits. So the system's designed to be flexible because they know freelancing is unpredictable.
Flexibility is key. The art world is not known for its steady paychecks.
That's for sure.
But what about the more serious stuff? We've talked about being temporarily disabled. But what if an injury leads to a permanent disability? Something that really impacts your ability to create the art you used to.
That's where the permanent disablement benefits come in. And they offer financial support based on how severe the disability is. The goal is to help you sustain your life, even if your art practice has to change.
So it's recognizing that an injury can have really long-lasting effects.
For sure.
And sometimes you have to adapt.
Absolutely.
And maybe even shift your whole career trajectory.
Right. And it's not just financial aid. SOCSO can also connect you with rehabilitation services, physical therapy to help you regain mobility if that's an issue, vocational training to explore new artistic avenues, even counseling to help you deal with the emotional and psychological impacts of going through something like that.
Wow, so it really is holistic. They recognize that an injury affects more than just your body.
It's a big deal.
It affects your creative identity, your
Yeah.
confidence,
Absolutely.
your whole sense of who you are as an artist.
It can really shake your world. Before we go too much further into that and how artists actually sign up for all of this, we want to remind you, you're listening to the Art Business Podcast. And if you're finding this helpful, we'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We have a lot more insights to share about navigating the art world. We'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive on this really important topic.
Welcome back to the Art Business Podcast. We've been talking about how the Self-Employment Social Security Scheme, or SKSPS, can really provide some peace of mind for Malaysian visual artists. Now let's get practical. How do I actually enroll in this program?
Well, the good news is eligibility is pretty straightforward. If you're a Malaysian citizen or permanent resident and you're earning income independently through your art, chances are you qualify. And there's no age restriction, which is great. It doesn't matter if you're just starting out or you've had a long career.
So fresh out of art school or a seasoned professional,
Yeah.
SKSPS could still be beneficial.
Absolutely.
That's great. Okay, but what about the application process itself? What kind of documents do artists need to have ready to go?
So the main thing is a photocopy of your identity card.
Right.
It's just for verification purposes. And then you'll need something that confirms your self-employed status as an artist.
Okay, can you give us some examples? What would that look like for different types of artists?
Sure. Let's say you're a sculptor who rents a studio space.
Mhm.
A copy of your rental agreement would work. If you're a freelance graphic designer, maybe a letter of confirmation from a client, or even from a professional association that you're a member of. Sometimes even just a screenshot of your online portfolio, or showing that you have an active social media presence where you're presenting your work. That can be helpful too.
So it seems like the key is really just showing that you're actively engaged in your art as a self-employed person.
Exactly. And it doesn't really matter what your specific artistic discipline is.
That makes sense. Now, thankfully, registering for SKSPS and managing those contributions has gotten a lot easier in recent years, especially with all the digital services available now.
It has. It's come a long way.
Can you walk us through those options?
Yeah, so there are two main ways to do it now. The first is through the PERKESO app. It's a really user-friendly mobile app you can download. And it lets you register for the Self-Employed Protection Scheme, which includes SKSPS. And you can handle your contribution payments right through the app.
Having a dedicated app is so convenient.
It is.
All the information you need right there on your phone.
Exactly. And the second option is the Matrix portal. That's an online platform you can access through SOCSO's website. It offers a really wide range of services, registration, contribution management, and even just general resources and information.
So artists have choices.
Yeah.
Which makes it a lot less intimidating to get involved.
For sure. SOCSO's really streamlined the process, and they recognize that not everyone's comfortable with those old-school bureaucratic procedures.
That's great to see. Now, while we've covered the main points of SKSPS, it's really important to remember this is just an introduction.
It is.
Artists really need to do their own research as well to make sure they fully understand everything
Absolutely.
and feel empowered to make their own decisions.
We always encourage people to visit SOCSO's official website. They have detailed information there, guides, FAQs, and any updates to the scheme or the benefits.
Right, because things change.
They do.
Staying up to date is really crucial,
It is.
so you can make the best choices for yourself. And speaking of staying informed, before we move on to talking about the bigger picture impact of SKSPS, for the Malaysian art scene as a whole, we want to remind you about the Art Business Podcast on YouTube. If you're enjoying this deep dive, please consider subscribing. We'll be back shortly to continue our discussion.
Now, we think about the broader significance of SKSPS. It's not just about having this financial safety net in place. It's about fostering a sense of security and stability for Malaysian artists.
Yeah, it takes a lot of pressure off.
It does.
Knowing that there's a system there to support you.
Exactly.
You can focus on your art. You're not constantly worried about what if.
It can be really liberating.
To focus on your creative pursuits.
Yep.
Without that constant fear hanging over you.
It lets you take more creative risks.
Push the boundaries.
Absolutely.
Experiment.
Yeah.
Because you know if something goes wrong, you're not completely on your own.
You've got a safety net.
This has ripple effects, doesn't it?
It does.
Not just for individual artists, but for the whole Malaysian art world.
It could even encourage more people to consider art as a viable career path because they know there's this support system in place.
So we could see a more diverse and vibrant art community emerge.
Absolutely.
New talent coming in, people who might have been scared off before because it seemed too risky.
And it's not just about the number of artists, it's about the quality of the art being produced.
When artists feel secure, they can take more chances, push the boundaries of their creativity,
Absolutely.
explore new forms of expression. It's about fostering innovation and a more dynamic and challenging art scene.
That benefits everyone in the long run.
Exactly. A thriving art scene is good for everyone.
It really is.
It stimulates dialogue, it challenges our perspectives, it contributes to our cultural identity, it even enhances our overall well-being as a society.
It's something we should all be invested in. So as you think about whether SKSPS is the right choice for you, don't just think about the personal benefits. Think about the bigger picture. Think about how this could impact the whole Malaysian art community and what role it might play in shaping the future of art in Malaysia.
It's a big question, but it's worth considering.
It is.
We've given you a lot of information to digest today
We have.
about the details of SKSPS and its potential impact on Malaysian art. But remember, this is just the beginning.
There's always more to learn.
We encourage you to check out the resources we've mentioned. SOCSO's website, the Perhatian app, the Matrix portal. Really dive in and get a full understanding of how SKSPS can support you on your artistic journey.
It's a valuable tool, and we hope you'll use it.
For more insights on navigating the business side of the art world, be sure to visit and subscribe to the Art Business Podcast on YouTube. Now in our final segment, we'll wrap up our deep dive into SKSPS and leave you with some final thoughts to ponder. Welcome back to the Art Business Podcast. We spent this episode really digging into the Self-Employment Social Security Scheme, SKSPS, and how it works specifically for visual artists here in Malaysia. So as we wrap up, let's kind of distill everything down. What are the key takeaways?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just that SKSPS offers this structure of support that a lot of artists just don't have when they're working for themselves. We've talked about those benefits for work injuries, both the immediate medical coverage and then that financial safety net of the temporary disablement benefit if you can't work while you're recovering.
And we also touched on those more serious situations. Permanent disability from a work-related incident, or even death while working. It's not pleasant to think about.
Yeah.
But SKSPS has benefits for those too.
Right. It's about trying to help people sustain their livelihoods and provide for their families if the worst happens.
Absolutely. Now, it's really worth emphasizing how accessible this scheme is.
Yeah.
The Malaysian government has that subsidy program that can really reduce your contribution costs.
Well, that's a big difference.
Especially for artists whose income is unpredictable.
For sure.
It makes it much more feasible to participate.
And the application process itself is pretty smooth, too, whether you're using the Perhatian app or the Matrix portal.
So it's comprehensive,
Yeah.
It's relatively affordable, and it's easy to manage. But I'm curious, beyond those practical aspects, what are the bigger implications here for Malaysian artists and the art world in general?
That's where it gets really exciting, I think. The fact that SKSPS exists could actually encourage more people to pursue art as a career.
Because it doesn't seem so risky anymore.
Exactly.
They know there's a safety net.
Right. So we could see a much more diverse and vibrant artistic community develop over time. All this new talent coming in, who might have been too scared to try before.
And it's not just about the quantity of artists either. It's about what they create. When you feel secure, you can take more chances. You can push the boundaries in your work.
Absolutely.
Explore new ideas. It's all about fostering that innovation, creating a more dynamic and challenging art scene.
And that ultimately benefits everyone.
Exactly. A thriving art scene lifts us all up. It sparks conversation. It makes us think differently. It contributes to our cultural identity and even just our overall well-being as a society.
It's something to be celebrated.
So as you decide whether SKSPS is right for you personally, I think it's important to think about the bigger picture too. How could this impact the whole Malaysian art community? What role could it play in shaping the future of art here?
It's a big question, but it's worth asking.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the nuts and bolts of the scheme itself to its potential ripple effects on the art world. We hope this deep dive has given you the information you need to make informed decisions about your own artistic path.
And remember, this is just the start. We really encourage you to explore those resources we've mentioned. SOCSO's website, the Perhatian app, the Matrix portal. Dive in, get all the details, and really understand how SKSPS can support you on your creative journey.
For even more insights on navigating the business side of the art world, make sure to visit and subscribe to the Art Business Podcast on YouTube. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thank you for listening to the Art Business Podcast.